Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Faster my good evening, it's 5:30. This is Update for Friday 27th of October 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the island, background to that news and sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates, and the newsmakers in person this evening. The Minister speaks on suspending work permits. Should the steam packet be allowed to sell the Ben McCree? The Bishop leaves this weekend, but we got no replacement yet. Nobles Hospital tops the Education League, and Ravens face a tough task in Manchester tomorrow.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Fastamai Christian Jones.
Fastamai, a teenager from Douglas who stabbed another man in the street, has been jailed for almost 6 years. Callum Kelly's actions left his victim needing surgery following the incident on the 13th of July last year. A Douglas North MHK is warning medical students who are studying off-island could be subject to inequality when it comes to government support. David Ashford says people who have got to go to the United Kingdom to study are being disadvantaged. And the Enterprise Minister insists temporarily suspending the work permit system will not open the floodgates. Tim Johnston maintains the move, which would see them switched off for 2 years, would help resolve the island's critical labour shortage. In international news, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer's stance on the conflict between Israel and Gaza is being challenged by 3 senior politicians in his own party. The mayors of London and Greater Manchester and Scottish leader are all calling for a ceasefire. 6 Red Cross aid trucks have entered Gaza carrying urgently needed medical and water purification supplies. Medical staff, including a war surgery team, have gone in too. And Wilko will be back on the high street before Christmas. The brand's new owner says the first 5 stores will open by late December. Those are the Update News headlines, next at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Garamaya, thank you, Christian, from the Ronaldsway Met Office. There is a strong wind warning in operation. State of sea slight, later moderate. Any showers should die away on the Isle of Man after dark anyway, mostly dry overnight. A moderate to fresh southeasterly. Minimum temperature is 11. For Saturday, Jasam will remain unsettled with showers on a fresh to strong southeasterly up to 13 degrees. Spells of rain after dark down to 10 through the night. Clocks go back at 2 a.m. remember, Saturday into Sunday. And for Jadooni, rain first thing, clearing to scattered showers with sunny intervals on a fresh to strong southeasterly, easing as the day continues. Top temperature 13. The tide turned. Low water was at 13 minutes past 5. Sunset's 5 to 6 tonight. High tide 19 minutes past 11. Low tide is at 12 minutes before 6. Sunrise 10 past 8. And high water tomorrow morning at 11:42, 18 minutes to midday. And there is a yellow weather warning for coastal overtopping for those 2 high tides.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
In a few weeks' time, the Department for Enterprise will ask politicians for permission to temporarily switch off the work permit system. But there's already opposition from some members who are concerned the move could see an influx of people to the Isle of Man, which we might struggle to cope with. The Enterprise Minister, Tim Johnston, MHK, says it's simply not the case.
I get very concerned when people talking about floodgates and people flooding in. It's irresponsible for some of these comments that I think are being made. This has got nothing to do with immigration. This is about people coming from either the United Kingdom, Ireland or the Channel Islands to the Isle of Man with a job offer already to come and take up that job. We recognise the fact that we need to encourage more working age people to the island. We're wanting to do that. We want to invest in housing and our infrastructure, absolutely. But we're also recognising the fact that we have many job vacancies. And I bring it back to the point of this issue around work permits and their suspension and the bringing forward a registration process is about people coming to the island where there are already jobs. This is not about people moving here en masse and suddenly swamping our public services. The key thing is to make sure that we have that data collection and we understand the size of our jobs market, who's here, sort of levels of salaries, etc. And by having this registration process, that will mean we'll have that understanding, because the general registration process would be relevant across all workers coming to the island, so wherever they are. So it gives the island and the government a much more understanding and detail of the situation. I accept that there's some members who feel very strongly about this, but my concern is that some of the issues, as you've raised today, are not issues related to work permits. So I think it's important that we stick to it and talk about the real challenges of the debate. Clearly, I'm engaging with all members and we're wanting to do so. Ultimately, it's a proposal. We're bringing it forward to Tynwald to decide.
The matrix signs at Hilbury, Barrow, Sulby and Albert Road are showing fog on the mountain road. A Douglas Central MHK is calling for a strategic reset of the Sea Services Agreement. The agreement requires the steam packet to keep the Ben Chree, but the Department of Infrastructure is currently considering a request to see this replaced by the motor vessel Arrow. Chris Thomas MHK has put forward a Tynwald motion asking for the Sea Services Agreement to be looked into.
The Sea Services Agreement is for 25 years, but certain things can be strategically reset, and that includes the type of vessels that we use, and I believe that's something that the steam packet wants to put on the table, because I don't think it can deliver a replacement for the Manannan by the end of 2026, which is what the Sea Services Agreement says it should do. It's purchased the Arrow, which wasn't required under the Sea Services Agreement. For me, a very important issue is that the Ben Chree is needed for quite a few years to come. That's an issue that I'll be following up. But at this stage, all my motion does is call for the principle that we should have a strategic reset of the Sea Services Agreement. How long is the Ben going to be kept is a big issue, massive issue. So all of those questions are the ones that need to be determined by government eventually through its Department of Infrastructure. But at this stage, if we do decide to have a strategic reset, we want evidence. So we want evidence from the steam packet, evidence from other people who've got strong views. It's not a regular consultation. If you ask the public, do you want to pay more or less for steam packet ferry prices, they'll say less. What I want evidence to be submitted from Visit Isle of Man if they're the appropriate people on behalf of the visiting industry.
Why do we need a Sea Services Agreement?
Because we purchased the steam packet as a people of the Isle of Man in the national interest, and the Sea Services Agreement provides what at the time was called the balanced scorecard approach to sea services. If we just had a company with a shareholder, we'd be serving the shareholders' interests and the company's interests.
This is the most listened to Isle of Man news source, and Manx Radio's Update is the Isle of Man's most downloaded news podcast.
Faster by, it's 22 minutes now before 6. FC Isle of Man face a big task tomorrow when they travel to face High Flyers Wythenshawe FC in the NWCFL Premier Division. But the Ravens have beaten their opponents already this campaign, and FC Isle of Man boss Paul Jones believes the Ravens are in a good place to upset the odds again.
It's a big test, isn't it? We played them relatively recently at home and managed a 1-0 victory with a really strong defensive performance, and both teams have seen each other very recently, so it'll be interesting to see how things go, really, but it'll be a real stiff challenge. I'm sure they won't be taking anything for granted, and since we beat them, they've gone on an unbeaten streak and scored a load of goals along the way. So it'll be a really tough test for us on Saturday. We see kind of lots of progress being made within our training sessions. The standard has been excellent once again this week, and everyone's in a really, really good place. So we use the word consistency a lot, or certainly I do, and there was some really, really good stuff, especially first half on Saturday, and it's about delivering that consistently over 90 minutes, whilst also making sure that we're respectful of the opposition and have a bit of a plan of how to cope with them, but not only cope with them, but exploit areas we feel that they can be exploited and play to our strengths. And hopefully we can see more of that, not just this season, but previous seasons would be the kiss of death now, won't it? But we tend to play very, very well against the teams higher up the league, and we've struggled at times to get results against the teams that are below us or around us in the league from time to time. So we believe we've got some good results and good performances. We're turning those into some more consistent 3 points, and if we're serious about being up towards the top end of the table at the end of the season, then the game we've got on Saturday against Wythenshawe, then Earlham away, on the following Tuesday, and then the games we have coming up after that are really, really important to get something from. It's really about delivering a top performance against one of the best teams in the league at the moment, and if we do that, we give ourselves a really good chance to walk away with the 3 points.
Nobles Hospital has retained its top ranking in the Northwest for the provision of medical education to junior doctors. The results have emerged from the annual National Training Survey for 2023 from the General Medical Council. It's compulsory for all junior doctors in training to complete feedback forms, and the latest findings relate to feedback from the Internal Medicine Year 1. Nobles is followed by Liverpool Heart and Chest Hospital NHS Trust Foundation. Here's Simon Richardson.
Manx Care's Chief Executive Officer Teresa Cope says the organisation prides itself on making sure trainees are given as much one-to-one training and development as possible in order to set themselves up for the time they'll spend in much larger teaching hospitals in the northwest of England during their second and third years. Over 40 doctors undertaking postgraduate training to become either hospital consultants or general practitioners have been seconded by NHS England and are currently working for Manx Care. Each junior doctor is asked to score their hospital, training and environment across 19 categories. For internal medicine training, Nobles finished in the top quartile for 17 of the 19 areas, with a score of 84% for satisfaction and 91% for clinical supervision.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Motor vessel Manxman left Heysham at 17 minutes to 3. She'll be into the bay in the next half hour or so and onto the link span shortly after 6:15. Out tonight at 8:15, Manxman heads to Heysham, getting there around midnight. The 02:15 departure from Lancashire back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. The Fatscraft Manannan left Douglas at 17 minutes past 1. She's safely on the link span in Liverpool and will be departing in about half an hour's time or so, 6:15, back to Douglas at 9:45. Tomorrow morning's departures, 8:45, Manxman heads to Liverpool, 10 o'clock, Manannan goes to Liverpool.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
A teenager from Douglas who stabbed another man in the street's been jailed for almost 6 years. Callum Kelly's actions left his victim needing surgery to remove part of his bowel following the incident on the 13th of July last year. At Douglas Courthouse for Manx Radio, Tessa Hawley.
At Douglas Courthouse today, the 19-year-old from Spring Valley Road was told he'd caused a grave injury to the 17-year-old. Kelly had denied wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, but was convicted after a trial in September at the Court of General Jail Delivery. Jurors heard the 999 call made from Groves Road at around 2:30 in the morning and watched a video which showed the moment the victim was stabbed once in the stomach. Today, Kelly's advocate told the court his client, who was also 17 at the time of the incident, had certainly lost his way. He said 2 men who were cousins had come for Kelly, who had no previous convictions, armed with weapons including a knuckle duster after a juvenile dispute. Kelly, the advocate said, had responded by arming himself with a large kitchen knife. The injury caused, the advocate added, was unpleasant and one that could have taken the man's life. The court heard Kelly was arrested at 7:30 in the evening on the 13th of July. When police searched the rucksack he was carrying, they found almost 1 kilo of cannabis with a street value of more than £18,000. It also contained £7,000 in cash. Kelly had previously pleaded guilty to possessing an offensive weapon, possession of cannabis with intent to supply, and possessing criminal cash. Addressing Kelly in the dock, Deemster Graham Cook said he believed the dispute between the men had concerned drugs, and Kelly was trying to call the victim's bluff. Jailing him for 5 years and 9 months, the Deemster added, "It gives me no pleasure at all to impose such a sentence."
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 5:45, in corporate news, British Airways and Iberia owner IAG flew lower despite posting a record third quarter profit of £1 €1.75 billion, driven by strong demand. For a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. Russia's central banks put up key interest rate to 15% to try to curb inflation and bolster a weak ruble. The higher-than-expected rate rise of 2 percentage points raises borrowing costs for the fourth time in a row. Globally, the pace of price rises has been high, in part due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Inflation in Russia's hit 6% in September. There's also been increased government spending in Russia as it pours resources into its war machine. The Bank of Russia, the country's central banks, now raise rates by 7.5 percentage points since July as it seeks to get inflation back down to its 4% target. This includes an unscheduled emergency rise in August as the ruble tumbled past 100 to the dollar and the Kremlin call for tighter monetary policy. Current inflationary pressures have significantly increased to a level above the Bank of Russia's expectations as demand for goods and services is outpacing supply, and that's reflected in high lending growth.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European stocks close lower with earnings and the state of the global economy keeping sentiment on edge. The Nasdaq Composite rose, trying to recover some of its weak, steep losses. Gold prices held steady, and oil rose as investors priced in fears of an escalation in the conflict in the Middle East. And the details, the numbers now from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. The FTSE 100's down almost 0.9% at 7,291. The DAX in Frankfurt down 0.3% at 14,687. A short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial down almost 0.4% at 32,662. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index up 1 2/10% at 12,746, and the S&P 500 in Chicago is up 0.25% at 4,148. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 21.5 cents, €1 14.7 cents, and 22 South African rands 84.6 cents. In commodities, gold down 0.25% at $1,979 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up 0.6% at $87.75.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future. For a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Isle of Man Water Sports. Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Here's the relevant information. If you're sailing, kayaking, windsurfing, paddleboarding, sea swimming, diving or surfing this weekend, sea temperature is 14 Celsius. And for Saturday, the wind is east or southeasterly, force 5 or 6, wave height 1.5 to 1.8 metres, wave period 5 to 6 seconds, high water tomorrow morning 11:45 a.m. And for Sunday, the wind is easterly, force 5 or 6, decreasing east or southeasterly, force 3 or 4 later, wave height 1 to 1.5 metres, wave period 5 to 6 seconds, high tide 11:30 a.m.
Manx Glass and Glazing are able to offer an emergency out-of-hours boarding up service. Call 491918. Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690-300.
This weekend sees the Bishop of Soderman depart the role after 6 years. Peter Eagles announced his retirement earlier this year and has already taken part in his final Tynwald sitting and taken his last Sunday service. The recruitment process for his replacement's underway, with shortlisting and interviews due to take place early next year.
As I think back over my time in Tynwald Court, I think back to the sessions during COVID, those which we conducted obviously on Microsoft Teams, and some of the challenges, some of the decisions that needed to be made, some of the judgments that needed to be made, and to share in that with members of Tynwald and of government. That was a task, and that was a privilege to have done. And I'm glad now that we've that we made our way through that, and we enter into the next chapter of our lives. I've looked on the role as being one where where I'm privileged to share in the journey with members of Tynwald. There's a tradition that the bishop doesn't always have to speak on everything and may indeed not always want to say something about everything, but actually to be there sharing on the journey with people, and where necessary perhaps either to bring in something in terms of spiritual and pastoral support, or perhaps a spiritual perspective on life, can be really important. I would say that about that COVID experience too. As human beings, we're physical beings, we are thinking beings, we are also spiritual beings. Our lives have aspects of all of those things, and the bishop is sometimes able to speak into that spiritual space, sometimes not actually even necessarily using words, but actually just being there as a sign of support for our politicians in the work that they have.
Manx Radio Sport.
Fast am I, Rob Pritchard.
Fast am I. Good evening. Starting with football, and Ayr United will be looking to make it 8 straight wins to maintain their perfect start in the Men's Premier League among the latest Manx League fixtures this weekend. They face a potentially tricky test at Glen Road up against Laxey, whilst their nearest challengers currently, St Mary's, will be looking to claw back ground when they travel to Braddon. Elsewhere, Foxdale will have the chance to head back to the summit of Division 2 when they travel to Maloo tomorrow, and on Sunday the Canada Life Women's Floodlit Cup gets underway, with Corinthians versus Onken and Douglas Royal versus Maloo. All of Saturday's ties will start at 2:30pm, with the exception of St Mary's versus Braddon in Combination 1, which will start at the earlier time of 1:45. In rugby, Southern Nomads are heading to the Wirral tomorrow, hoping for success in the Cheshire Bowl competition. They'll face Oxton Parkonians at 2:30pm on Saturday. Manx Radio's rugby correspondent Dave Christian believes Nomads have a decent chance of taking victory.
Nomads will have nothing to fear. They've got great Cheshire Cup experience in the past, good experienced side. They've got all the right players in the right places. Whether or not the competitive league structure that Parkonians are played in will give them a bit of an advantage, it remains to be seen.
Elsewhere on Island, Ramsey host Western Vikings at 2:15 tomorrow in the Ravenscroft Manx Shield at Morag Park. And in hockey, the Isle of Man men's national hockey team are in action on Island this weekend as they begin their latest campaign in the England Hockey Knockout Championships. They face Timperley Seconds at the NSC at 1pm on Saturday. It'll be a first game in charge of the Manx squad for their new coach Neil Crowe. Manx Radio hockey correspondent Ben Cunningham says it'll be an exciting occasion.
I think they stand a good chance. The team look really strong, and from the way they've been training hard week in, week out, and I think Neil's got a very good squad there going into this game, and I really do hope that they come out with the goods.
Elsewhere, games across the Isle of Man mixed leagues are taking place throughout Saturday. You can see a schedule of those at manxradio.com.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound at Ronald's Way, the 6 o'clock EasyJet from Bristol's 10 minutes late. Next, after that, it's the 10 to 8 Loganair from London City, but it would have been, it's been cancelled. Then it's the 5 to 8 Loganair from Liverpool, delayed until 25 to 9. 8:30 EasyJet from Gatwick is showing on time, fingers crossed. Outbound, the 6 o'clock EasyJet to Manchester on time, 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool delayed until 20 to 7. The 6:30 EasyJet to Bristol is currently showing on time, and the 9 o'clock to London Gatwick, fingers crossed, showing on time. On the roads, well, the problems, the closure at Spring Valley roundabout, the bottom of Richmond Hill, should have been finishing today, but it's going on till the middle of next week. So the Newcastle Town Road closed between Spring Valley roundabout, the bottom of Richmond Hill, till they've finished. In Port St Mary, temporary lights at the junction with Queen's Road and Park Road for gas main work in Castletown. Queen Street's closed for resurfacing. You got temporary lights in Peel on Peveril Road for resurfacing. Hillside Avenue, Douglas closed through to Circular Road for adjacent office window replacement. And temporary lights on Glen Crushery Road in Douglas at the roundabout with Victoria Road. At the Braid, temporary lights at the Braid roundabout for patching work, and Old Laxey Hill is closed for excavation work. And remember, fog on the mountain road tonight.
H&H Motorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646. Update. Brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
A doctor at Nobles Hospital has raised concerns about a lack of street lighting near the medical facility after a member of staff was injured. Our local democracy reporter Emma Draper.
In an email sent to the local democracy reporting service, the doctor, who wants to remain anonymous, says the lack of street lights has become more noticeable since the night started getting darker. Ballarat Road leads to 2 entrances at the hospital and is used by employees and patients accessing the site. The doctor, who moved to the island recently, says lighting would contribute to making the area a safer environment, especially for women. In the email, she says improving an individual's sense of safety through the simple measure of improved lighting is worthwhile, particularly when the point of interest is a site frequented by hospital patients. Ideally, she would like the streetlights to be on the stretch from Strang Stores to the second hospital entrance, which leads to the drug and alcohol team's building. She says that adding lights on a small stretch of the road close to where the new leisure centre is wouldn't significantly impact light pollution in the area. She says if the area was better lit, it would help people using the road to see better and improve their personal safety, and would also increase driving visibility for people using it to access the mountain road. She says fellow staff at the hospital agree the road is dangerous. Bradden commissioners say lighting there was discussed 8 to 10 years ago, but no resolution was made to install streetlights. It says the board isn't a lover of lights and has also refused to put them on Richmond Hill.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Christian Jones, producer Lewis Foster. Rob Pritchard's back with Sport after 6. Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley at 6:30. Dark Nights are on the way. Have a great weekend. I'm back Monday at 5:30.
WI